plus distribution of stress, which is either more or less. That has got to be managed, of course, plus connecting it all together. And I thought, well, that's very few variables, and all we've got to do is kind of mix them up well. So that attracted me a great deal. And I think perhaps because I was interested, I found the students were interested too, and it really brought lessons to life. It brought such enjoyment and pleasure and engagement to play around with pronunciation, not trying to be good, not trying to be bad, but just seeing that we could affect pronunciation, we could sound different if we wanted to. And of course, students quickly found that as they play with their pronunciation, their listening gets very sharp very quickly, and therefore they learnt and remembered vocabulary very, very easily. So it was all, for all those reasons. I think perhaps its simplicity was the main one.
Right, well, yes, and thank you very much, Julie, for the question. And you've been, basically been teaching pronunciation for some time. It's your baby, isn't it? And of course, the Phonemic Chart was created by you, which we use pretty much in all the IH schools, at least we display them, which is fantastic. Okay, now the next question we have for you, Adrian, let's bring it on, is from Katerina in Ukraine, and just mentioned the Phonemic Chart. Katerina's question is, when is the best time to teach the Phonemic Chart with primary learners? That's an interesting question, because we do use it often with adults, but with younger children. What's your take on that, Adrian?
Okay, well, again, very good question. Thank you for that, Katerina. I will just say at the beginning, I never teach the Phonemic Chart. It's not a thing to teach. I teach how students can make easily the sounds which are then noted on the Phonemic Chart. It's like you don't teach a whiteboard, but you put stuff on the whiteboard. I'm not teaching the Phonemic Chart, I'm teaching the sounds that kind of go behind it. And you ask the best time. Every time is the best time, always is the best time. I don't teach it and then move on. It is in circulation from the very first moment of the very first lesson up until they leave my class at any age and at any level of proficiency. Pronunciation is always in circulation, since people are always talking or having language in their heads. Therefore, I think not so much of the Phonemic Chart, which is simply a notation of what we're doing. I'm thinking of what it is that goes on in their head, and especially what it is that goes on in their muscles. All the time is the best time, and for young learners right from the beginning. And if you don't actually use the Phonemic Chart, never mind, have their lunch boxes out, have a little pattern, ask them who would like to be it today, who would like to be e, who would like to be oo, maybe have 4 or 5 sounds and play with those and get the kids to come up and be parts of words and so on. So, or arrange their shoes if they're young ones. It doesn't have to be a chart as such.
Yeah, I agree. I think, phonics, of course, is very, very important for such a young age range as well. And I love your idea with open the lunchbox and focus on different sounds from the lunchbox. Okay, now the third question we have, we're moving through these quite quickly, which is good. So please, guys, if you do have any other questions, do enter them in the Q&A box. The third question we have for you, Adrian, is from one of my current IH Toruń teachers, Chloe from Switzerland. And her question is, when teaching pronunciation, what criteria would you say is to be used to determine which sounds to focus on in a given lesson, Adrian?
Well, thanks, Chloe. And I think it is a good question, because I don't approach sounds from a syllabus point of view, like this week's sound or last week or next week's sound or the sound for this lesson. I approach sounds as needed in the moment. And I'm particularly, that my criteria are particularly, one of my criteria is what is preventing that student from making a good connected up utterance, whether it's a phrase or a short sentence or a long sentence. If there's anything getting in the way of that, that is what I'm going to look at. It might be a sound, it might be a reduction of a sound, it might be joining some sounds together, or it might be energizing the sound. It's only going to be one of those 4 things. It's pretty simple. What is obstructing a nice piece of connected speech with a good energy distribution? And these might be sounds that have come up before, they frequently will. But that is my essential criteria. I am concerned with individual sounds, but only insofar as they serve really good, cool, easy sounding, comprehensible connected speech.
Okay, thank you very much. I did see Chloe there. I was trying to unmute her to see if she wanted to add anything, but no, I don't think she wants to.
Please do if you want to. Anyway.
Fair enough. Okay, but anyway, thank you. I'm sure she appreciates that answer. So thank you very much, Adrian, and thank you, Chloe, for your question. Okay, now the fourth question is a long one, so I'm warning you now. Okay. Okay. So here we go. Let's bear with it. So this person says, and her name is Tatiana from Belarus. Tatiana says, I teach English to Russian-speaking kids and have started noticing them being naughty with their accent. That's something I've noticed some of my friends as well. Yeah. It continues, just a second. Young kids, for example, the ages 6 to 13, while learning English and technically being able to produce nice sounds, tend to make their accent sound less English-wise. So they intentionally make their R sounds harder, their D and T sounds become less aspirated, though they can speak well if they try to do so. So they deliberately putting on more of an accent, Eastern European accent in their lessons. Why does this happen, Tatiana asks, and should we as teachers correct them so they didn't get used to the incorrect pronunciation? And it continues, is it a problem? Or should we just keep demonstrating the right sounds without interfering and just expose them to a lot of English-like English? From Tatiana in Belarus. What a long question, interesting one.
Thank you, Tatiana. This goes straight to my heart. I love this question. For me, naughtiness is a kind of stifled creativity. It's students wanting to be creative when they can't be because the syllabus, the classroom setting, and they're doing things they don't want to do and they want to be creative. So what I do, how I go about it is this. I'm really interested in varieties of accent and varieties of English. So I always say to teachers, whatever your accent, native and non-native, teach how you speak, get them to listen to other teachers if they have other teachers who will probably speak differently. Maybe get them to find a piece of English, perhaps if they're a bit older, listen to them, ask them for homework, find a movie star who's speaking in English, maybe they're native speaker, maybe they're not, and find one phrase that you really love about what they say, you know, your hero movie star, and come in tomorrow and be able to say that phrase in the way that they say it. I ask students to adopt accents from around their own country of different parts, if they can do it. I ask them, in this case you're talking about Russian, I ask them if they could make a Russian phrase with a very English accent. And I ask them to do what you're saying is kind of naughty. I ask them to make an English phrase with a very Russian accent. In other words, I'm interested in playfulness. I'm trying to get them to be playful with accents. Who could say this in American English? Who could say this in British English? Who could say it in Russian English? And we just play with those differences. And I don't prefer or unprefer anything. I'm just delighted by the fact that they can move between them. Because if they can move between them, it shows they are connecting with the muscles that make the difference. And they are the ones that will be able to adopt, in the end, actually, any accent they want. So that's how I go about it. I look for variety and I welcome it.
Absolutely, great answer and a very good question. And Lucy Cotterell's it's just disappeared. Mentioned about your naughtiness is a stifle. What was your quote you said? I just missed it.
I think, well, I can't remember what I said, but I think something like that naughtiness is, for me, kind of like stifled creativity.
Yes, that's it. Great quote. I think Lucy's gonna, yeah, there it is. Naughtiness is a stifled creativity. And Lucy Cotterell in IH Radio Calabria says she loves it. So brilliant. I think you know Lucy. Okay, so thank you very much, Tatiana, for your great question. And now moving on, I think it's another one of my teachers, actually. Let me just share the next slide. It's getting a bit slow here. I think my computer's been on all day. Hopefully everything's looking okay at your end. Okay, so question number 5, I believe it is one of my current teachers, Gareth. Here we go. I've heard it said so many times that the best way for students to improve their pronunciation is to listen to native speakers or high-level non-native speakers. This would point towards students listening to their teacher talking. Yet, so many people within the EFL world stress a reduction in teacher talking time. It's something which is banged on about during the CELTA TTT, reduce your TTT. Why is the EFL industry so split on this issue? And what's your personal view on it, Adrian? And that's from one of my teachers, Gareth from Northern Ireland. Thank you, Gareth, for your question. Very good one.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. I'm not quite sure why people are so split on it. I do think that the teaching profession has not made a very good fist of pronunciation in general. I'm generalizing, I realize. And I think it is our very much our weak point as an international group. Yes, of course, we want teachers to speak less in terms of telling and instructing, but there's no harm in teachers speaking in order to facilitate and to coach and to draw out of students. And I think that's very helpful. From speaking for myself, I want students to be the ones that are usually making the noise rather than me. But I want me to be coaching them so that I'm all the time active and drawing out of them not only the best sounds they can make at that moment, which will be far from perfect, perhaps, but also the best connected speech. For me, the sounds simply serve connected speech. I'm really after connected speech. That means words that are joined and stresses that are in the right place, and most important, unstresses. So I want them to be rehearsing the best English they can do, and my speaking is going to be a kind of coaching towards getting them to do that. Yes, there's a time for the teacher to speak, of course there is. And occasionally to model speaking by reading things. But I really want to shut up as much as possible so that my talking is simply coaching the best possible that they can do in that moment.
Great take on it, Adrian. Yeah, I mean, I do love talking myself a lot, but my take is that, you know, as long as the teacher talks a lot and the students talk a lot, that's fine. It's when the teacher's talking a lot and the students are not talking at all, that's when it's really bad. But I like your answer very much as well, Adrian. Okay, now we have question. We got two more questions from but I see in the box we've already got 4 lined up as well, Adrian. So we're going to be fine for time here. Don't you worry. Okay, so question number 6. And it's from Torsif in United Arab Emirates. With distant learning becoming the norm across the globe, what challenges do you think teachers of ELT and L2 learners will face? I mean, this has been a continuing topic really here during the conference today. We've heard from a lot of people teaching, you know, talking about online learning, from John Hughes, Scott, and a few others. Adrian, what's your take on it?
Well, my take is that I want to catch up on what everyone else has been saying during the day.
Well, we are recording. We're recording all the sessions, so I certainly will share them with you.
Well, of course, I've been doing webinars for a long time, but this is not the same as teaching. And I have, in the last 2 or 3, 4 months, had occasion to teach as well, to teach courses online. And I found this very, very interesting indeed. I think the first thing that struck me, as I'm sure it does you, is that it's very difficult to read the room when you're online because things seem to take a bit longer and people leave pauses because they're not quite sure. They can't read each other, so they don't know when to jump in and when to not jump in. So you tend to get gaps as everyone waits for everyone. So for me, the exciting thing has been the question, how does one establish relationship? Because for me, relationship in the classroom is very important. It's what makes everything happen. How does one establish relationship at a distance? And how does one make use of slowness? So how can I use the slowing downness of teaching online to somehow reorder the dynamics so that I am taking a real interest a personal interest in the progress of each student, allowing them to do the same for each other, getting them to frequently compliment each other in the chat box when we have when people try tiny little stories or short sentences and so on. So I have found that though frustrated at first, it is possible to use the so-called disadvantages of online to advantage. And I'm talking especially about how things slow down and therefore the pauses that one is afforded to make use of relationship building in a slightly different way. I haven't actually gone into detail there because I think it would be a rather longer answer. But I think a relationship and managing the slowness to advantage are two of the things that I've been working on anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, there can be a lot of lack of interaction and a lot of dead time is as a result. But you know, we've heard from a lot of really interesting talks about teaching students online. Chris Rowland about teaching kids online. Anna Hasper, John Hughes. So I think we've learned a lot already. So I mean, we're all learning. We're adapting to online lessons. It's kind of exciting, really. You know. Whole new thing, new future, really. Okay, now let's move on to question number 7. Okay, and this is from Victoria in Ukraine. Do you continue teaching students? In other words, are you still an active teacher in the classroom? And if yes, how much time does it take for you to plan a lesson, Adrian?
Well, I'm not an active teacher in the language classroom. I'm an active teacher of teachers. And then we are working on drama in English, storytelling, poetry reading, and this is for native and non-native. And we are working on their performance. So we're working on personal presence and performance in the speaking of English. Fluency would be another way to put it. So yes, I'm doing that. Planning takes me a long time. It always has done. Less than when I started, of course, but I do work at it quite carefully. And I've come to realize that what we call planning is partly planning, but more likely preparation. And by preparation, I think particularly of preparing myself so that I've got enough safety net to be spontaneous and creative and to improvise, and yet there's a safety net to fall back on if and when things go wrong. And that spontaneity I value enormously because that's what brings the cast to life and the students to life. But like every performer, I also have a safety net. So I suppose I prepare myself rather than the lesson. But I do also have a lesson plan. I don't wander in without a lesson plan. I think it's nuts not to have a lesson plan. But I also think it's nuts to follow the lesson plan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be flexible and go with the flow sometimes. And I'm sure it's going to be music to some of the participants' ears when you said it takes you a long time to plan. I'm sure they're gonna feel a lot better now, I think. So thank you, Adrian. Now, I've just been looking at the Q&A box. We've got some really interesting questions that's been pinging in here from the audience, so thank you very much. One person has written this. It's a good one. This is interesting. I have a fairly strong Yorkshire accent. I can't do accents, so I'm not going to put one on. But and nothing pleases me more than hearing my students pronouncing their vowels in the same way as I do. However, students often tell me that they don't want to have a regional British accent like mine, which I'm quite sad about, but also wonder how to go about teaching pronunciation. Should I put on a posh voice?
No, don't change your accent. Get them to play with your accent. Get them and say, get them to know that it's Yorkshire and that has a really important pedigree in all the varieties of English. Ask them what other varieties they'd be interested in. Get them to go off and work online. Use those wonderful sort of around the world English accents in 2 minutes. get them into all the different kinds, ask them what they would like to focus on, get them to go and focus on it. You don't teach it, they go off and they find phrases and sentences said in that accent. Of course, the most easy to come by one is a so-called generalized American accent. And there is no one, just as there's no one British accent, but people kind of know what you mean and they put on an affectation which has validity. So I think, you can say to students, say it in Yorkshire, say it in Queens or BBC or say it like that person that we've just listened to, or now say it like that American character, now say it like me. Get them to pull and push between the two, between the three, between all of them. Like I was saying about the kind of naughty students, encourage people to realize that they can actually work with any accent. And all the time they're doing that, they are pulling the muscles, only a few bunches of muscles, which make the difference of pronunciation. And I've often said that actually a student can choose an accent. Even native speakers choose accents. You know, there are aspects of varieties of British English today which people affect as well as are brought up with. Actually, you know, a pronunciation can be a fashion statement. It's as easy as that. Anyone who is interested can do that, and your students, I'm sure, can as well. No, you keep speaking Yorkshire and get them to enjoy it and get them to go shopping for other accents themselves.
Definitely, yeah, don't change your accent. I completely agree. And another anonymous attendees asked you the question, could you tell us about a favorite pronunciation game that can be played with YLs and VYLs? I mean, of course, there's that famous pronunciation games book by, I believe it's Mark Hancock, but maybe you've got a few games, pronunciation games that we can play with VYLs and YLs, Adrian?
Well, I think it's quite fun to play with two sounds, maybe a consonant and a vowel, and then ask students to find words in English that have got those two sounds in. And, or even just to start with words that have got one sound, play with one sound and see if they can find words that have got one sound in. It's a tremendous thing because you've got to listen to the sound internally, compare it with the sound that is the target of the game, and then test it out. So you test it out in the class and you find, oh, it isn't quite the same because actually it's that sound. Then you've got two sounds in circulation, the one that you were trying for and the one that you've wrongly, as it turned out, proposed. And the game can go in a number of directions from that, but it is simply find a word with.
Okay, fantastic. One of my former teachers, I think it's one of my former teachers, Nicola, got a very good question. How do you teach, or do you have any tips to teach the voice dental fricative, you know, that the as in this, and the voiceless one as in thing versus the? Any tips?
Yeah, sure. If you say an F as in the beginning of the word fish, and you simply try to prolong that f sound, so you can all try that for a moment. Here I'm saying f, and you may not hear it well across this.
Let's do it, guys. Let's do it. Yeah.
You know, F, it's an F sound. And then I say to the students, okay, which bit of your mouth's making it? And eventually they come up with the lip and the teeth. Okay, I'll say, what's your tongue doing? Oh, my tongue, oh, it's kind of, you know, nothing really. It's behind. Okay, cool. So now keep making that, and you're going to bring the tip of your tongue to replace your bottom lip. So you're saying, and now you're going to bring your tongue forward to replace the bottom lip against the teeth. And as the tongue arrives, suddenly you're going to TH sound because you've simply put the tip of the tongue in place of that bottom lip. And all you've done is to bring the tip of the tongue forward slightly. That's denoted on my pronunciation chart by one sound being to the left of the other, which means bringing it forward. Here's a different process. You could start with the sound as in snake or sing. What's your word? Your word is thing. Okay, take the word sing as a singer, you know, rock singer, opera singer. And they're all to make the sound like in a sort of wiggly, wiggly snake. And I get them saying that sound, and I might say, which two bits are you brought together to make that? So maybe, well, it's not my lip, no, it's the tongue, yeah, what else? Is it the teeth? No, it's a bit behind the teeth, yeah, behind the teeth, all right. So make that sound, and as you're saying it, bring your tongue forward a little bit. And as your tongue pushes against the teeth and maybe comes down the bottom, but it doesn't actually have to. The tongue doesn't have to be visible for the TH sound. You suddenly lose that very high frequency, the sibilant, and you get the TH sounds. So there's two ways of approaching the TH sound. I do that a lot. I start with a sound that students have got and find the very simple move, the very simple journey that you make from what they have to the one they're looking for. This mouth is very small. There aren't many moves. There's only 3 things that move at all in the mouth. The rest is fixed furniture. Why people make such a meal out of pronunciation, I just can't imagine. It's simple and it's fun.
It is. Well, thank you so much, Adrian. Great questions as well, guys. Really, really good stuff. I'm pretty much coming to the end. I have got one extra little bonus question. Just a bit of fun, Adrian. Don't take it seriously. One person's written in, bonus question is, how are you, Adrian? And this is from Janet here in Poland. So how are you?
I've been trekking between the old flat and the new flat all day, and moving furniture and dealing with the removals people, and a delightful but sometimes crying 9-month-old baby. It's been a lot of pleasure, a lot of fun, and I'm going back to it right now.
Great. Right, well, I do appreciate you spending a bit of time with us on what is such a busy day for you, Adrian. It's much appreciated, and I'm sure
thank you.
Really found that very, very useful. So thank you very much, Adrian, and I hope we can meet sometime for real in the future again. All right, so
thanks so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.